Hi everyone, so in this video I'm just going to run through some top tips when teaching online. So first of all, bear in mind asynchronous and synchronous learning. So what does that mean? Basically, it means balance the amount of learning that takes place face to face, whether that's online or in person, and whether there are opportunities for your students to engage in learning in their own time. So that includes making sure that you introduce your lesson objectives clearly at the beginning of the lesson, and then that you recap that learning has taken place at the end of the lesson. Also make sure that your activities are bite-sized. So all of us struggle when we have kind of Zoom or Teams fatigue after watching back-to-back presentations online, and your students will experience that same issue. So therefore, try and vary your activities and make sure that they're short and to the point. Also make sure that there are opportunities for peer-to-peer collaboration for your students, which is really important to create an online community of learning. Should my students have their cameras on or off? Well, obviously there's a massive benefit to students having their cameras on in lessons. It allows you to judge the feel of the room to make sure that students are engaged and that they're paying attention, but also to make sure that you're pacing the delivery at the right opportunity for your students to engage as well. However, some of your students might not be in a safe space. Now that means they might not feel comfortable turning their camera on, they might not feel comfortable turning their mic on in that situation. So make sure that you're engaging with your students in one-to-one tutorials and asking those questions to make sure that they're comfortable and to understand their situation. So the great thing about Office 365 tools is that they have inbuilt immersive readers, which means that students can change the font, they can change the color overlay, they can change text to speech, and they have all of those inbuilt options available for them to customize their lesson resources depending on their needs. However, as an educator, it would be really great if you could consider the accessibility needs of your students and also make sure that your lesson resources are as accessible as possible. Collaboration is really important when learning online because it creates a community for peer-to-peer development. You can use Kahoots or Quizlet, or you could add feedback options by using online tools such as Padlet, Microsoft Whiteboard, Mentimeter, Class Notebook. There are so many options out there. I get this question a lot. How do I encourage my students to interact during the lesson, particularly if they don't have their cameras on, or they're struggling to turn their mics on, or they have any connection issues? This is a great question. First of all, if your students are engaging live, then they could do live reactions by using emojis. Make sure you ask your questions around the room as you normally would on site. Manage expectations in terms of how students ask questions. Do they ask questions in the chat? Do they click to raise their hand? Are you using breakout rooms? Again, you could create study groups for your students to learn separately and to have peer-to-peer development opportunities. And also fundamentally, you don't want your lessons to be a passive experience for students. You want them to be engaging. Particularly online, you want to make sure that you're consistent with formative assessments, tutorials, and also allowing your students to feed back to you directly. Therefore, you can make sure that you adjust the pace of the lesson according to your students, or that you maybe change the activities depending on their needs. Use the analytics for your virtual learning environment to check that learning has taken place and that students are actually engaging with that content. And therefore you have that user experience feedback, which is ultimately your end goal. It's to make sure that your learning resources are tailored towards your class and your class only. So a few things to consider moving forwards then. As educators and students return to the classroom, just think about your blended learning strategy. How are you going to incorporate tech tools into the curriculum delivery? How are you going to support your students and staff in terms of their digital skills development and progress? Also, if you are using Microsoft products in your organisation, I do recommend you stay up to date with the Teams updates, as there seems to be something new every month, which is really exciting for educators. As always, consider GDPR safeguarding and accessibility requirements as standard, and really bear these in mind when you're planning your digital strategy moving forwards, and particularly use this as an opportunity to review your current virtual learning environment. So let's face it, this has been a difficult time during the pandemic for both students and for staff. This also gives us an opportunity to consider incorporating technology into the curriculum moving forwards and to build on this trajectory that we already have. So use this as a foundation of knowledge. Think back over the challenges and the successes that you've had over the last year, and think about how you can build on that in the next year. I hope this has been helpful for everyone. If you have any feedback, then please add it into the comments, and I'll post a new video soon.